This is a schematic of the vacuum advanced delay system. When you start the cold V12 engine, a timer starts. It's a 15-minute timer. During that 15 minutes, parts of this circuit are active and other parts are inactive, and it prevents this vacuum advance unit on the side of the distributor from performing any timing advance. So the engine runs inefficiently for that 15 minutes, uses lots of fuel, but the car heats up more quickly. If you want to get better fuel economy and you want your car to run fine during the warm-up, then remove all this. And if you remove these components, it cleans up your engine bay, and the pile you end up with of useless bits looks like this. This is a solenoid valve that runs air from the filter box through to the inlet manifold, and there are various solenoids here that switch over different parts of the circuit as in the schematic. In the way I have set mine up, we keep this vacuum dump valve, but we get rid of this, and this, I believe. Let's just have a look. One, yeah, that one, yes. And I'll show you how to then fix up the vacuum system. So my car, when I got it, already had the vacuum advance delay system wasn't working. Some wires were removed. Someone had run a line, this is a hose, just a hollow hose for the vacuum line, from this nozzle here, spout, on the inlet manifold. That coincides with the butterfly valve, which is inside there, on this spindle here. Butterfly valve sits like that. And the edge of the butterfly valve coincides with this port here. And if you really don't want to get too involved, you can just run the hose from this port down there into the vacuum advance module on the side of the distributor. Can't quite see because it's buried in there. So in the very useful book by Kirby Palm about the XJS V12 engines, which is useful, it does translate to other V12 Jags and Daimlers, where he explains the vacuum advance delay system really well. That book, I'll put a link on the down in the comments section so that you can access that for free. They recommend a simplest solution you can put in is to run a line directly to the distributor. But I've played around with a few options, and I've found one that works better. I get at least 4 miles per gallon improvement in my economy, which is 25%, by this method by trial and error rather than complete science, I've put into my car. So although this line still runs to the distributor, there's actually a T in it, which I've connected another length of hose, and this is all spare left over from the bits that I took out of the engine, and that runs, if I wiggle it around, yeah, it runs through this one-way valve. That's important. I didn't have that in at first when I set this system up, and the vacuum system from the top here and the bottom, which I'll show you in a minute, the bottom of the same housing of the butterfly valve, I think those vacuums were battling each other for the for dominance in the distributor advance. So we put the one-way valve in here so that vacuum can be drawn this way towards this dump valve, because actually the source of that vacuum is this other line. So under here there's a line that coincides with the sibling port of this one, which runs almost opposite, probably opposite to where my finger is now, and that coincides with the butterfly valve when it's in about the mid-throttle position. So when vacuum is drawn then across the butterfly valve, it gets drawn into this pipe, which then runs into the flat side of this dump valve. So that's important, that the routing is that way. And then the underside of the dump valve, that then runs through this one-way valve so that the suction air can go that way, but it can't run back that way. So this then tees into this main line that goes to the distributor. And it made a big difference to just add that one extra line through the dump valve and through the one-way valve. Now I get, as I say, better fuel economy. The power has been released right through the rev range. I haven't taken it up beyond about 4,000 RPM because it's an old car, but the way it's responding, if it's working correctly above 3,000 RPM and the car runs efficiently and smoothly above 3,000 RPM, which is the speed of the engine when the timing is set on these, 18 degrees before top dead centre, then my reasoning is that it will work further. So you do have to block off a couple of ports. Underneath there's this large line. Some people may recognise what I've blocked it off with. I didn't have anything better at the time. This is a fairly new development. I'll put proper cups on to block the ports when I can get some. But that line corresponds to this valve, solenoid valve, which originally ran, you'll see it connected to the back of your air box, so the clean air side of the filter, and then that port, there was a longer length of pipe which eventually connected to this one down here. This only activates for the first 45 seconds of the engine running, and the idea is to run extra air into the inlet manifold to increase revs when the engine's first started. I've taken it out, I've blocked up the hole there, blocked up the pipe there, and the result is it starts beautifully and runs smoothly right from the outset. So as part of this modification, you have to cap off any hoses you've cut. I've done it rather simply here with a screw in the end, which is a bit primitive, but it does the trick until I can find a cap like this one, which came with the car. This line has nothing to do with this, another vacuum line. It has nothing to do with this particular circuit. This is a solenoid valve that was connected to a screw down here at the end of the inlet manifold housing. That came off with a Torx headed screwdriver, or I think I used a spanner. So that came out. There's some cabling as well associated with that, some spare pipe. This unit is a regulator, vacuum regulator, to stop too much vacuum being drawn. I don't think mine actually worked. If it was working, it wasn't working very well. Taking it out has not caused any problems. This is another solenoid valve, which I showed you from the schematic earlier. It was in here somewhere, connected to other way around, I think. Anyway, you'll recognise it. It was connected there, I think. Probably not that orientation. Again, that comes out with any cabling associated with it. There's a bundle of wires which I took off at the connectors, and I tucked some loose ends rather than try to trace them back too far. I've tucked them. I think this is it. Tape them up and tuck them in because they're not really doing any harm. Part of the circuit is this water temperature sensor down there. That has a couple of cables on it which feed into the circuit that was on that schematic. You can replace that, put a blank in. If you want to try out the theory of removing the vacuum advance delay, disconnect just one cable of the two cables from that temperature sensor. That will then deactivate the whole circuit. It will act as if it's not doing anything, similar to the end solution that I've got here. So you get to try it out for free. I tried mine out for a few months, didn't notice any difference. It turns out that was because the system wasn't working, some of the components were not working, so it didn't make any difference to me. But it's a way for you to try it out for free before you commit to taking all the excess components out. So the end result of all this work is, as I mentioned earlier, my car runs significantly more efficiently. It will take longer to heat up than it would with the vacuum advance delay system running, but I live in Australia, we have mild weather, so it's not a problem. The car, it's a big V12 shoehorned into a relatively small space. Getting it heated up is not really a problem. Keeping it cool is more of an issue. And there are no harmful effects. And the added benefit is, of course, this extra space around here. There's lots of cable and pipe and solenoids and valves and just junk that was in my car not serving any purpose, and even if it is working, I think the point of it is a little bit unnecessary. So good luck with any modifications you attempt. Do read the Kirby Palm book. Do also subscribe to Living with a Classic, which is a very, very helpful source of information. Good luck.